Yo, what's going on? It's Alec here. Sorry about that. I was listening to some amazing music. And what I want to talk to you about today is how to get ripped in the big 2026. The big 26, as people are calling it. You know, I've been able to maintain my muscle mass throughout these past 8 months or so since I last made a video, hitting the gym consistently at least twice a week, sometimes more like 3 days a week, but able to maintain all my strength, all my muscle. And I've gotten to a point where I'm pretty happy with where I'm at in the gym. And again, what I want to talk to you today about is how to get ripped in 2026. It's already April, and me myself, I want to get a little bit leaner for the summer. I want to tighten up for the summer. I want to make it so that by May, I'm extremely ripped. I look insanely good, and I stand out from just the average person that goes to the gym. If you look around, not the average population, but the average gym even, most people are not lean, they're not ripped. They don't look good. They do the same exercises, they don't push themselves, they don't track their workouts, and most of all, they're not lean. So why is that? What's going on there? Well, we're going to get into that, and we're also just generally going to cover what you need to know to get ripped. So to start off, all right, and you may have heard some of this information before, but we'll go over it, and then I'll get into some of my specific tips and tricks. Overall, the key to getting lean is, number one, being a calorie deficit. That is the most important thing. And how you get there, it doesn't really matter. You can do whatever you want, whatever works for you. The most important thing is eating less calories than you burn. And I'm sure most people are aware of that. Well, how can you figure that out? Well, you can figure out what your baseline calories are by multiplying your body weight times 15. Unless you're extremely overweight, your body weight times 15 is going to be about your maintenance, about how many calories you need to eat to maintain your body weight. Now, how many calories below that should you eat to get ripped? Well, that's a great question. And I would generally say a 500 calorie deficit per day. So let's say your maintenance is 2,500. That means to get ripped, you want to eat around 2,000 calories. Now, how do you figure out how many calories you're actually taking in? Well, when you consume a product off the shelf, let's say a protein bar, you can look at the nutrition label, and that generally, I don't know why I keep saying genuinely when I'm supposed to say generally, that generally tells you the information. So a standard protein bar might be 200 calories. And you can track that in MyFitnessPal, you can track it in your notes, you can mentally take a note of it, whatever works for you. The most important thing is just tracking. And then let's say you have a sweet potato. A sweet potato doesn't come with a label on the sweet potato that says the exact calories. So how do you get around this? You could take a picture and upload it to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT, what calorie content do you think is in this sweet potato? And it will give you an estimate. Another way you could do that is buy a cheap scale on Amazon, $10, weigh the sweet potato, and then calculate per gram how many calories are in that, and figure it out that way. Either one's fine. I like to use the scale just to be a little bit more accurate, and that's how you get a general sense of how many calories you're consuming. So that's rule number one, is you have to be in a calorie deficit, and I just explained how to do that. Now, what are ways to maximize the amount of muscle you retain while you're cutting body fat? Because if you just go in a calorie deficit and that's all you do, yeah, you might lose 5 pounds, and 3 of those might be body weight fat, and 2 of those might be muscle. So in order to maintain all your muscle while you're cutting, you want to be hitting the gym at least twice a week. And you want to be maintaining your strength in the gym. Some people say, oh, like when you're cutting, you want to go higher reps because it burns more calories. False. Unless you're just worried about cardio, which that's something else, then you can do that. But if you're worried about the muscle mass, then you want to stay at the same lift if possible. So make sure you're tracking your lifts and in your notes or however you track it. And then while you're cutting, you want to maintain that strength. If you're maintaining strength, that's a good indicator that you're maintaining muscle while you're getting leaner. And so that's another trick you can do. Another trick that you should do is get at least 0.8 pounds, or excuse me, 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So if you're 200 pounds, that means you get 160 grams of protein. And you can go a little bit lower than that, just play around with it. Me personally, I like to just try to make sure I get at least 100 grams of protein a day, and I generally seem to be able to maintain my strength with that. Some people say a gram per day. I like 0.8. I like to add in a little bit more carbs, and I just feel better, feel like I have higher testosterone, stuff like that. So we got 3 rules so far. 1, calorie deficit. 2, maintain your strength in the gym, lift twice a week at least, and then also eat enough protein. So after that, those are like the 3 main things I would say. After that, you can add in other stuff like steps. Getting 10 to 20,000 steps a day is going to help. Intermittent fasting could help. Pushing your first meal later into the day. Other people have covered this before. I'm kind of just reiterating. And you can do coffee in the morning, stuff like that. That had worked really well for me. And just do this over April, May, maybe even June. And then by July and August, when it really counts, you'll be ripped, right? So me personally, I like where I'm at, but I just want to tighten up a little bit. So this is kind of what I'm going to be following. And something I personally have done that I like to do is 6 days I'm tracking, I'm thinking about nutrition. And 1 day a week, I kind of do a maintenance day or a free day where I'm not trying to stuff myself, but I am going out to restaurants and I'm not tracking, I'm not thinking about nutrition. And that kind of just gives me a break for that day. So again, I'm not trying to stuff myself, but it's a nice break. So you could try that as well. And the crazy thing with this is like maybe a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you don't really feel like you're making any progress, even if you stick to everything perfectly. But I would say about a month is when you really can see, okay, I made some decent progress, about that 30-day mark. And it's really challenging psychologically because every day, you're putting in the work, you're executing what you're supposed to be doing. And even then, 2-3 weeks in, you're like, man, I don't look any different. I don't feel any different. Keep going. And if you keep going and you keep pushing, eventually you'll get there and you'll get ripped. And I think, the steps themselves are easy. It's like, oh, I just eat less, track, all that stuff's easy. But what's a challenge is the psychological component of it, the mindset of it, the negotiating with yourself, that kind of stuff is very challenging. The discipline to stick to it. The process itself is easy. It's easy to understand. It's not rocket science. But what's very difficult and why most people can't stick to it and why most people are out of shape and why even most people in the gym don't look that good is because it's so difficult psychologically. And, I've struggled with this for a while, and I found that you have to be mindful of these steps and track to make progress, but you have to have other things going on in your life, and you have to let the diet, fitness stuff fall into the background. So it's not the main thing you're thinking about throughout the day. The main thing that you're thinking about throughout the day should be your career, your business, your social life, your actions, your hobbies, whatever it is. And then you're not obsessed over this. This isn't the main thing unless you're trying to be like a pro bodybuilder. But where I found to have made the most progress while simultaneously enjoying my life and I was able to stick to it was when I kind of let go and relaxed and still stuck to the process, but I didn't get obsessed with it. And I really think that's the key to get ripped in 2026 is follow the process, but don't get too obsessed with it. Don't get too worried about it. Don't, obviously follow the program, like I said, but don't obsess about it. Go live your life, right? And that's why I like that 1 day a week where you're just a little bit more relaxed because it allows you to go out to eat with a friend and not worry about tracking this and tracking that at the restaurant. So anyways, hope that helps. Hope that gets you ripped in the big 26. Let me know how your progress is going in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Peace.